You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you?
Come on, let's go. Let's look for UFOs from the Secret Space Program.
Now, I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you that the circumstantial evidence that there's been a program that has been long running and involved very high level people, it's almost impossible to imagine that this is fake. There's a 1971 Australian document from the Australian Intelligence Service that has been declassified and made public, which clears up all sorts of mysteries about what was going on with physics in the 1950s and 60s. And it names names. It says that Freeman Dyson, John Archibald Wheeler, Pascal Jordan, the Nazi, all of these people were working on anti-gravity. And the only reason to be working on anti-gravity is that there was reason to think that something had gone beyond Einsteinian relativity.
Does the United States have a secret space program? Sound silly? Well, believe it or not, there are many people, some serious, seemingly serious people, who think that it does. But as for me, I don't know. I'm not averse to the idea, but you got to ask, why? Why have a secret space program, about which no one knows? That being said, I certainly think the U.S. could have a secret space program, but once again, why? Conspiracy people say that the secret space program is much more advanced than the public one, and that they've managed to create anti-gravity tech. But I don't know. But anyway, we're going to take a look at it.
I don't understand. Where does all this come from? How do you get funding for something like this?
Well, you don't actually think they spend $20,000 on a hammer, $30,000 on a toilet seat, do you?
Now, there are those of you out there, I can already hear you. You're saying stuff like, well, if that were the case, then people would know about it because it's such a big undertaking and endeavor that it would get out and everyone would know about it all over the world. Well, would it? Because, you have the Manhattan Project, where we developed an atomic bomb and had thousands of people working on it, and yet no one figured it out. No one knew. And then you have the Iran-Contra affair, where we were, or people within our government were selling dope from Colombia here in the United States. They'd run the dope from Colombia up to the United States and sell it and pump it into the black community. And they were taking the proceeds and using the proceeds to fund anti-government, anti-communist guerrillas in Nicaragua, among other places. Now, they did get caught in Nicaragua, and there was a big government hearing, senatorial hearing, and, but nothing ever happened. No one ever went to jail, But that does, called the Iran-Contra affair, that does illustrate that our government, does run black budget programs, off-the-books programs. And at the Iran-Contra hearings, this fella here, Daniel Inouye, I'm fuzzy about the pronunciation, but, this is what he said at that Senate hearing. There exists a shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. That's what he said, and that's what the conspiracy people have been saying for how long? That is precisely what the conspiracy people have been saying. It's what I've been saying. So anyway, the idea that we could have a secret space program, some black budget secret space program, it's possible. It's certainly possible. And one thing that I've always noticed in life is if something is possible, then it usually gets done. If it aggrandizes someone's wealth and power, and it's possible, it will happen.
With the tedious inevitability of an unloved season.
I didn't think there were any seasons in space.
As far as you're concerned, only winter. And the treacherous Dr. Goodhead. Despite your efforts, my finely wrought dream approaches its fulfillment.
But let's go a step further, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a government. You know, look at those two James Bond villains there. Blofeld, Ernst Stavlo Blofeld, and Drax there. I've forgotten Drax's name. Those characters represented some extremely powerful and wealthy individuals who made up their own secret space program. I think Drax, he was gonna wipe out the planet with some kind of disease while him and his people lived up in space, and then when everyone was dead, they were going to come back and repopulate the world with their master race. And then Blofeld, I think Blofeld was just some kind of a greedy son of a bitch who just wanted a bunch of money. But, you know, the idea isn't that far-fetched. Look at BlackRock, for instance. There's Larry Fink there, an appropriate name for that son of a bitch. But anyway, BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager with $10 trillion currently in its portfolio. According to MarketWatch, there is currently around $40 trillion in circulation around the world, which means that BlackRock manages a quarter of the world's money. BlackRock could have their own Navy, their own CIA, their own... Essentially, they really are a nation without borders, really. Think about it. But, you know, they really... even if they didn't have their own, they could... With that kind of money, they could infiltrate and co-opt nations and take control of their government and infrastructure and their bureaucracy from the shadows. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a government doing it. Heaven help us.
The charges: you hacked into the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Department of Defense, and NASA, amongst other things. Why?
I was in search of suppressed technology.
Oh, and another thing I'd forgotten about, secretly developing advanced technology was one of the things that the Nazis were planning to do after they'd lost the war, as early as 1943. Look up the Red House report. I've addressed that topic in other videos. I'm disinclined to think that that's too great a possibility, but, you know, it's within the realm of plausibility. But anyway, in walks Gary McKinnon. He looks kind of like one of them there reptilioid dudes. I don't believe in reptilioid dudes, but, you know, if there were one, he'd look like it, you know. But at any rate, he hacked in to the Navy's computer system. Let me read this. Gary McKinnon hacked into numerous U.S. military and NASA computer systems several years ago and learned of the existence of non-terrestrial officers and fleet-to-fleet transfers, and a secret program called Solar Warden. He was charged by the Bush Justice Department with having committed the biggest military computer hack of all time and stood to face prison time up to 70 years. And he also, discovered supposedly the existence of 8 what they called motherships that we had. And, well, anyway, he was English, and we tried to extradite him from England, but England wouldn't extradite him because they were afraid he'd kill himself or be suicided. I think that's probably what would have happened. But at any rate, he never was extradited. He's free to this day in England. And the thing that's really perplexed me is that no one's disputed the information that he collected. No one's disputing that the information that he presented to the public is what he found. They say that he did illegal things. Yeah, he did. You know, they say that he's crazy. He has autism, just like me. But, you know, no one disputes the information he stole. And that's my dog drinking over there. Sorry about that.
TR-3B, a mysterious aircraft that has been intriguing conspiracy theorists and aviation enthusiasts for decades. Often described as a large triangular-shaped vehicle, it is frequently associated with advanced military technology and stealth capabilities. A recurring theme in these theories is the belief in a government cover-up. Many theorists argue that official denials and a lack of transparency contribute to public speculation and distrust, suggesting that such secrecy serves national security interests. There is also speculation about its functionality, suggesting a system employs a revolutionary anti-gravity propulsion mechanism. This system allegedly utilizes highly pressurized mercury, accelerated by nuclear energy, to create a plasma field around the craft. This would allow it to achieve remarkable speeds and maneuverability while remaining nearly invisible to radar. The design of the craft is said to enable silent operation and rapid high-G maneuvers, representing a significant leap in aviation technology if true. While there are slight variations among each sighting, one detail remains consistent: a silent black triangular-shaped craft with bright lights at each corner.
You know, and I forgot a couple of more things. A fella named Rich, he was a big wig at Lockheed Martin. He made the remark before he retired that he said, "We now have the ability to take E.T. home." He said that. And Ronald Reagan slipped up once in some meeting or another. It was made in public that we had the capability of supporting several hundred people in space. He said he was told that. Of course, he had Alzheimer's. You know, take it with a grain of salt. But he did say that. And let's see. Well, that's all I can think of. However, it's all done by people. There's never any mention of aliens. Aliens are not required, folks. I don't really much believe in aliens visiting the Earth, but anyway. Let's read this here. Actually, there is some evidence to substantiate elements of its existence, that being the TR-3B. Among the conspiracy UFO people, they talk about the TR-3B as if it's some kind of an established fact that there's not any question that it exists, and I don't agree with that. But anyway, there's some evidence to suggest it might exist. For example, an anti-gravity drive of the sort believers claim powers the TR-3B would require massive amounts of power production, more than we could possibly produce with current aviation engines. However, Lockheed Martin does have a patent for a containerized cold fusion reactor. They say could be small enough to fit inside the fuselage of an F-16. So once again, Lockheed Martin, take E.T. home. So it's not that far-fetched. I mean, how do we know that the technology is so wild? You know, maybe just somebody just stumbled across it 75 years ago, and they've developed it since then. There are some stories coming out of World War II that the Germans developed anti-gravity tech. They could hover a bell-shaped craft up off the ground. They could never get any further than that. They could make it hover and come back down, but they couldn't do anything more with it. So, you know, who knows? And think about it. How hard would it really be to build a spaceship? Would it be much different than a submarine? A nuclear submarine, maybe? You know, a nuclear reaction produces oxygen. You'd have all the oxygen you needed, and then you'd have compressed gas for maneuvering in space. The only impediment would be gravity, because we don't have the capability of getting the materials up into space to assemble it in space. But if we did have the capability of defying the law of gravity, then you could build one. You could build one right here on Earth and just take off. You know, gravity is the main impediment, the principal impediment. But if they've figured out a way around that, then why wouldn't there be a space fleet? I'm still in the dark, though, about why it would be kept secret. The conspiracy people, they've got this wild story about how they're going to fake an alien invasion and use that as an excuse to get everyone to go along with their one world government. I don't know. Once again, always ask yourself what they would do. If I were a psychopath and I wanted to start a one world government and I had the capability of doing that, I might do it, unless I had some better way. Who knows?
You know, he said things like, I couldn't believe, to be honest with you. He told me he was talking about 20 and back and bases on Mars and the moon and all this. Although none of that was in his book. I do believe that there was a information contamination.
Gaia and the Cyberstalkers are the dark forces.
All right, so my clients are not the dark forces?
No. Yeah, the Cabal.
And as is always the case when legitimate inquiry starts poking around in a subject, you get the weirdos coming out for one reason or another, coming along. And here we have it, Corey Goode and the blue chicken people from outer space. Corey Goode claims that he's a whistleblower and he's with the secret space program, and he goes as Earth's representative to all these places, and the blue chicken people tell him what to do, and they always tell him that we should respect the planet and, not be, eat vegan. I don't know, but it's the same left-wing agenda that you see everyone pushing these days. He's, the woke chicken people from outer space. So anyway, probably what's going to happen is that when the normies start to talk about this subject and hear about it, they're going to think of the blue chicken people, and they're going to just totally reject and ignore the legitimate inquiry. That sort of thing always happens. Oh yeah, and then of course the chicken people they're humanoid with a head and 2 arms and 2 legs. If alien life is going to evolve on other planets, do you think that it would evolve to look like us? Come on, folks. Chicken people.